Good morning, Kyla Burns.
Good morning.
So today we're doing coffee with Ellen instead of coffee with Kyla because today you are our subject matter. So cheers.
Cheers. This is going to be different.
It's going to be fun. So when we kind of came up with this idea and I started prepping for this interview, I tossed back and forth on how we would start. And for those of you who are regular attenders and or maybe newcomers to today's episode, we're going to be interviewing Kyla. But I kind of wanted to start with, Kyla, how did you start? What was the reason behind starting Coffee with Kyla, and what has it become?
Well, let's see. Let's go back to March, I guess. When the world shut down this spring because of COVID-19 and everyone went home, we really missed that human interaction. I think people were feeling really isolated and disconnected from information. And at that time, there was so much unknown, and there were so many articles coming out, and no one really knew where to turn. And so we developed Coffee with Kyla because typically we would have these conversations in our work studio, invite our clients in and our guests to have an interaction, have a conversation, and we were really missing that. So we developed Coffee with Kyla as a way to get relevant information and a human interaction to our clients and to our followers. And that's really where it started.
Yeah. Well, we've loved them. I have a few of them that are my favorite. So this is fun for me to kind of be in this seat to get to interview you. So let's, I guess, start with how you always start, and that's, can you tell us who you are and what your title is at LOTH?
Yeah, so I'm Kyla Burns, and I'm the creative lead at LOTH. And I have an interior design background. I've been in the industry for about 16 years now, and I've done the creative lead specifically at LOTH for almost 3 years.
Awesome. So I guess to get started, our first portion of this interview is going to be really about you and who you are at LOTH and what your role has become in our business. So if you give us a little more deeper dive into what creative lead means and then how it fits into our process.
Yeah, so our process really starts with human-centered. So we talk a lot about human-centered design. And my role really evolved in a response to the market, specifically in Columbus, and how we approach projects in our office, how our team works together. And we just needed someone to bridge that gap from why are we even doing this project to begin with to the infrastructure of the furniture in the space. So when we dive into that, what's your why? We really needed someone to facilitate that conversation that had a deep understanding for human behavior and why people behave the way that they do. What kind of infrastructure can we develop with the space to cultivate a certain kind of culture or behavior or interactions of people. So that's really where the creative lead role stepped in, and I've loved it. It's been such a great experience to get to know people, and from having a design background, I think that conversation is really relatable, that we're trying to solve issues. We're trying to solve for these things that our clients are trying to achieve.
Yeah. I always like to call you our secret sauce or our ninja. Because, sitting in the designer's seat and being really focused more on kind of like the production of projects, it has been such a benefit to my career, and then also just my experience at LOTH to have someone who gets to focus on this part of the conversation that me being in corporate design or healthcare design don't necessarily get to dive into those conversations as deeply. So you being along on those rides and you getting to focus on that not only gets to be a learning experience for us, but it's just been so cool to be able to watch some of these customer relationships develop and projects that have unfolded. So I love your role. I love getting to.
Well, And that's a testament to our team, that we're so willing to work together and trust each other's expertise, that it really does take a team. It takes all of us working in a like-minded way. And I would say the depth of our bench is incredible, that we have all of these experts in these certain areas, but we all work together so well to make sure we're achieving what the client needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know with your role, you've gotten to kind of dive into a lot of different things, whether it's within LOTH or your own personal career. You recently just got certified as I might mess this up, ProSci certified change management practitioner. Can you speak to that and what that certification is and how it supports your role at LOTH?
Yeah, so ProSci is a certification in change management. And what change management is really the people side of change. So you think of a project manager takes care of all this stuff. When the painting's gonna happen, when the furniture's gonna arrive, when's the carpet going down so that we can start laying, our components. There's a whole nother side that has to deal with the people. When do we have people that are really afraid of change? Most people don't love change. So managing that process on a human level is really important. And that's what ProSci trains us in, is making sure that we're taking the people through those changes, not just the stuff. So there's a lot of strategies and exercises that we can go through with people to make sure that they're prepared for the change, they understand the change, and they're going through it successfully as well.
Awesome. So I guess, how have you seen that this certification has been helpful during this unique time that we've had in the workplace?
Well, there's a lot of change. And it's so personal. I think that for the first time, all of us are going through this like situation. We all have this one issue of a pandemic. So for the first time, everyone in a company is dealing with one issue in a very real way, whether it's affecting your kids going to school, whether you haven't been in your office since March, if you haven't been able to see your parents since March. Things like that have just really leveled the human side of how we work and where we work, that it's really created this relatable, universal feeling, I guess. And I think that people connecting with others and understanding that they're not in it alone, that everyone's kind of going through something similar, has been really helpful, because we all went home in March.
Right.
And it felt very isolated and singular. And the more and more that we talk about it and dive into those challenges that everyone has had, which we've been able to collect a lot of research since March on the things that are working and not working, that we really have this awesome toolbox for when we come out and return to the workplace, that we can make sure that we get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was so excited when you got this certification, just because it just kind of gives us as a company more breadth into our conversation when we talk to our customers, and how change management is a huge part of the conversation that always typically gets overlooked and is typically left on the customers to try to figure out on their own. So I'm really interested to see how.
And the changes that we work on.
Go ahead.
The changes that we work on are so personal because it's space.
Right.
It's not like we're implementing a new software system.
Right.
We are taking people out of what they are used to and putting them in a whole new environment, and sometimes a whole new way of working. So that is extremely personal, and that's why I think that the change management side of things is so appropriate for what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of finally, to touch on your role and how you've been in this role for, I think, about 3 years, this creative role specifically. What has been a learning experience that you've not expected to gain with this role?
I think it has come with the psychology behind why people are the way that they are and why they behave the way they do. How much
That's my favorite
space
question.
can help?
Yeah.
And that goes back to why I was interested in gaining the change management certification, because I just love learning about people and what makes them tick, and especially different companies and different cultures and what's unique to each of those settings, and what can we do to maybe enhance it or change it or maybe make it better. And I think that whole human side, the psychology of people's behavior, has been really exciting for me to learn more about.
So yeah, as a designer, we often understand that like the psychology and the conversation around human behavior is a huge part of how we design, but sometimes it's so hard to let others know that like that is so much of what we do, and it's just kind of the unspoken thing. So yeah, it's so great to like have someone that gets to focus on it and be the one that drives those conversations. So kind of like to transition into the big topic of COVID. Love to dive into more of that subject, but to truly, yes, understand some of your perspectives and experiences that you've seen in the past 8+ months. First, so when COVID crashed into our world in the spring, you were a leader in how LOTH needed to quickly pivot. Can you talk about that time and how you supported LOTH and our customers?
Yeah, and I think that I touched on this when I spoke about where the series developed, and really it was a need to have a real human conversation around the topics at hand. I think there were so many articles that had been coming out, and we were flooded with information, just left and right, of how to cope, how to deal, research. This is where it's going. This is what it means, and I think that that's one of my favorite things about working at LOTH is our ability to just evolve and pivot quickly.
Yeah.
And no one is ever hesitant to jump on board. I think we see the need and we have people to support it and move forward. And that's what I love, and what I think a big key to our success this year has been that this might have been the way that we've done it historically, but that way is out the window. We need to figure something out quickly and evolve and spin into something new.
Yeah.
And I think that going to this digital platform, how we host clients digitally, how we go over projects digitally, how now once we opened up a little bit, how do we host clients, how do we do it safely, how do we share information appropriately. I think all of those things are conversations that we are willing to have because we're so used to thinking that way. We're so used to challenging ourselves and thinking of new ways to do things that I wouldn't say that it wasn't hard, but it was in our nature.
Right. Yeah, and I think something that really speaks to a huge reason why we pivot when we need to is that we have such a great example too with our partner Steelcase. They're such an amazing partner to us, and they've always pushed us with their research and content around the workplace and human behaviors. How has Steelcase supported your role with LOTH, and specifically in this new era of working?
Well, Steelcase has always been super supportive of this idea of having an in-house resource, and anything that I have needed to execute a discovery exercise or upfront interactions with clients, they have been ready and willing to support us and make sure we have the right information and the right people in line. And I think that really Steelcase views us as a like-minded partner. We think really similarly about projects and how we apply all of the research that they have into practice. And it's really just been a wonderful, I think, ebb and flow to what they do and what we do. And I think that all comes from like-minded leadership and like-minded designers and how we approach projects and how we stay human-centered.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with all of that. So I would say out of anyone in our office, you get to experience kind of the widest range of customers within our markets, conversations, industries. How would you describe the Columbus market holistically? And then what are you seeing evolving due to this unexpected shift in the workplace behaviors and how it's been relevant to our community?
Yeah. Columbus is a really resilient and ready city. I feel that it's a very transient city. We have a ton of people that were born and bred here, but an equal amount of people that either came to school in Columbus and stayed or moved after graduating for a job. Or I think that the size of our city isn't small enough, but not quite big enough that you still have this small town vibe of people knowing each other and being familiar with things, but big enough that there's a ton of opportunity and new things to discover all the time. And that's what I think in our market across, Columbus specifically, and across all of those vertical markets, corporate, healthcare, education, is just a willingness to know more, learn more, and just the level of teamwork and collaboration. I think that that's in the nature of Columbus. And you can see that in almost every project. Just the nature of those people and our city comes out. And I love it because that's why I'm in Columbus. That's why I ended up here. I wasn't born here, but I moved here shortly after college, and I think of it as my hometown.
Yeah, absolutely. I love our market, and it's been so fun to kind of be in this position of, like, we're in the Midwest. It's not like we're sitting on the West Coast of California and all these new upcoming ideas and new things that seem so modern and out of our range. But really, I think our market's been just so interesting because we have to try to compete with that, but yet we have our own tone and our own pace, and how do we blend those two things together? And Columbus it's grown so much. I've loved seeing it evolve.
And everyone's so innovative in their thinking for the most part that, when I do talk to dealers that are maybe on one of the coasts or in a bigger city, it is really refreshing that we're doing what they're doing and maybe a few steps in front of it. We've been practicing that for a couple of years now. And that's always rewarding and refreshing to hear that we're just as innovative as those big cities.
Right. Well, this kind of wraps up our interview, but I have one more question, and it's the one that you get to ask everyone during your interviews, and what is a behavior you have developed during this time that you hope becomes a habit, either personal or professional?
I think that this time has really trained me to be okay in the unknown, and just be a little more present and focus on the things that really matter. Fundamentals are, I think, the key to success, and the fact that we've had a little bit of time to really think about what is important, and just be good people again, and look for the good in others and hold on to the things that are good. I think I'm going to take that on for a long time.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you know how much I love fundamentals. I think you and I sit and talk about those things all the time. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so thankful I get to call you a colleague and get to call you a friend at the same time. This has been so fun. So thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you do with LOTH. I hope you enjoy getting to know Kyla a little bit.
So sweet. Thank you so much, Ellen.
All right. Well, I'll see you in the office.